about comics. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about comics.
Hey friends, how you doing? Now on this channel, I make it a point to not review something unless I really like it. And I'm going to break with that for a couple of reasons today. One, this book is part of a greater universe that I'm enjoying, and I think it has potential. And two, it follows a trend that I think is important to catalog, being that I have reviewed every other book that I have read from this universe. And so I want to talk about Papa Duke #1. First off, the cover art is amazing. I will say that the cover artist is Naomi Griffin. We have the two main characters on here, Papa Duke and Lady Vega, in a beautiful rendering, very photorealistic and dark. Now, like I said, this is part of the wider Night of the Cadillacs universe, and it includes books like These Stitches and Kill Town and Lipstick Clique, and it is a gangland style story featuring vampires. And the first book I read from this series was Kill Town, which I really enjoyed the first issue of. It had a strong protagonist and a very interesting story and art style. But in #2, it really fell off. And it got kind of chaotic. And there were lots of typos and mistakes, like speech bubbles over people that weren't speaking, and just a lot of missed opportunities. But the story was intriguing. And then I read Lipstick Clique. Issue #1 was engaging. It was a big book, a complete story, very good stuff. #2, it was hard to get through. And then I read These Stitches. And #1 was great. I haven't read #2 yet. Hopefully that'll be arriving here soon. But this is from Execution Posse Holdings, Keenspot Comics. And like I said, I've noticed that it seems to be diminishing returns as we go further and further into these series. And I like the fact that it's interconnected and that all of these books are tied to the same story. You see Papa Duke in Lipstick Clique. You see men from Killtown in this book. And all of these characters are interacting. And I like the fact that it is a lot of different books telling one unified story. It's just that the storytelling is wildly inconsistent. And, if I'm looking at this, I'm more approaching it as another chapter of Killstown or Lipstick Clique, because you do get filled into a lot of characters you meet here, but it's just, I don't know if it was rush production or what. There are just a lot of issues in storytelling. It leaps all over the place. You meet new characters without explanation of who they are, what they're going, what they're doing, and it really doesn't establish too much world building. Papa Duke is a crime boss in the underground blood trade in this vampiric gangland story. And he is, I guess, probably the big antagonist out of this whole thing. He is not a very likable character in this story. I'm not going to go into too many details because, quite frankly, it's kind of messy and jumbled, and the content is a little bit adult for YouTube. And I mean, it's violent and it has its moments. It holds your attention. But I will say that with this book, like with Lipstick Clique, the first issue, I felt like I got a good story. The same thing with Kill Town, the first issue, and even the Stitches. But here, by the time I got to the last page, the main three storylines that they were putting together made no sense. And I felt like it was just it's a big book that felt short in a bad way. And like I said, I'm really hoping that this gets better because I like the idea of this big universe, this vampire gangland underground style, story that I have not seen in comics before. But these guys really need to step up the quality control, um, from the general story to every cover. Every cover has been brilliant. They have their own distinct styles that really captures the story. Killtown is an Asian gang leader, and her, that cover is, has a lot of Asian vibes to it, and different types of decor that fit that aesthetic. The Stitches, that is more of a motorcycle rallycross gang, and that cover very much has that aesthetic. Lipstick Clica is a gang of vampiric cholas, and it has that old school tattoo lowrider style to the cover. And this cover, like I said, beautiful, almost worth the price for this cover. Uh, but once you get inside the book, there's enough to hook you and keep you turning the page, but not really a lot of motion here. Not really a lot of story told, and the stories they do tell are very incomplete. So that's my thought on this. Part of me was considering unsubscribing, but again, it's a smaller company, and I like the concept, and I think that they can right the ship. And so I'm gonna stick, with these books for a little bit because, like I said, I think there's a lot of potential in them. I really enjoyed the first issue of Killtown. Number 2, not so much. Lipstick Clicker, it was a big double issue, a lot of story. It all made sense by the end of number 1. Number 2, not so much. The Stitches, that was a very good book. This right here, iffy. So if you're not one to take a chance on something, I would not suggest spending your $6 on this book. It is not a $6 book. Unless you are really a big fan of the cover art, then it could be something you put up on your wall. But it's not a $6 read. But like I said, I'm looking at this as another chapter in the bigger story. And so that's how I justify sticking with it. And I haven't seen too much from Execution Posse Holdings, Keenspot Comics. And they're a smaller company, which I really like to show support to on this channel. So I'm gonna give this at least one more issue and tell you guys what I think about that after. So that's been my thoughts on Papa Duke, number 1 from Execution Posse Holdings, Keenspot Comics. You can get yours at a local comic book store. And if you don't have a local comic book store, check out Coffee and a Comic in Huntington Beach. If you don't live in Huntington Beach, like I don't, I use their website, www.coffeeandacomic.com. Ask about their shipping subscription. They ship nationwide at great prices. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, keep reading them books. Probably not this one. But that's the great thing about comic books. There's something out there for everybody. I will see you next time.